sustained U.S. governance. And that includes all of the main intelligence agencies, all of the intelligence offices within the military services. It includes the entire classified operations amongst all corporations, obviously mostly defense contractors. It includes all of the classified people, all the classified documents, all of the classified programs, all the facilities, both in space, on the ground, and underground. It is huge. It is being funded by money above black, in the black, and also what we call rogue funding, which is beyond black. It's off the chart. The amount is unknown. Since 1947, it is in the many trillions of dollars. And this layer is interesting. There's several things about it. One that are notable. One, it is essentially kind of detached itself from the first layer, which is it's like a pod separation, in Star Trek, where the first level of government, the elected level, is the pod, and the secret empire is detached itself from that, and essentially the President of the United States, the executive branch, and the Congress have less and less to do, and in many cases nothing to do, with what goes on there. And the actual oversight of the secret empire is negligible to the point of nothing. In other words, it is a self-regulated entity. Now, the second thing that's notable about it is it is not a shadow government. There's not a group of guys down there who are passing laws or instituting state policy, really. And the third thing that's notable is that vast majority of people working in the secret empire are patriots. They're good Americans. They have families. They go home. They watch cable. They drink beer. They go to the World Series games. They're just like us. But when they go to their job, they step down into the secret empire. Now, there are people, we believe, who literally work below ground and never come up above ground. And so whatever life they have is down there. But even that has probably got a lot of normalcy to it. These people believe they're doing the right thing. They believe they're defending the United States' national security interest. And I can assure you that in many of the cases, they believe that defense involves our dealing with the extraterrestrial issue. So you have a situation here where we have these three layers. And the American people, with maybe one person in 100 of American citizens, has a reasonable understanding of these dichotomies. They just don't understand it.
Well, do you feel, in your opinion, in your experience as an exopolitical activist, that sure, we're treating it as a secret government. We're treating it as a secret empire. Our people go underground, and they don't speak about what they do. It's highly classified. We don't know where the money goes. We don't know what it's spent on. We don't know if we have bases on the moon or if we make regular trips to Mars. But do the ETs hold to that? Are they concerned about contact with the American people and those that are involved in that conscious movement? Or are they working in secret with this secret empire, which I assume is multinational?
Well, if the ETs would return my phone calls or emails, I might be able to answer that question, but they never do. The secret empire that I refer to is the one in the U.S. Now, most of the major nations in the world have their own intelligence operations. None of them are in the vast scope of the U.S. But they're not trivial, particularly the UK, obviously China, and Russia, and India, too. And one of the things that's also notable about this structure that I've discussed is that there is a certain amount of communication that goes on between these operations. In other words, it's like remember we made such a big deal back in the Cuban Missile Crisis about the fact that they installed a phone because the teletexts were a little slow and they were afraid they might have a nuclear war. Trust me, we've moved way past that. And so it's possible for the secret components of the U.S. Intelligence to talk with the secret components of the Chinese, secret components of the Russian, secret components of the UK. And so there's like a whole other dialogue going on down there. We have no idea what's being said. Now, are they formulating state policy? I'm not so sure. The secret empire is about programs. It's about research. It's about putting bases. It's about the secret space fleet. It's about, antimatter research, and on and on and on. It's also about some covert operations. It's about certain tasks that are assigned to it. It's not about what we'll call the hidden government. Now, there may be an above-ground hidden governance of another type, where you have extremely wealthy, multinational bankers who meet secretly and do a lot to affect geopolitical policies. I can't speak to that. I leave that to others. But the secret empires I'm talking about are primarily steeped in the national security structures, and they desperately need to be reformed.
Well, do you think...
I think their intentions are good, but these vast complexes with so little oversight, operating in a highly compartmental fashion where one group over here has no idea what another group's doing over here, the recipe there is for disaster. This is not what the founders wanted. In fact, the founders of the United States hadn't the slightest idea that anything of this scope could ever happen. This is so far beyond even their rather brilliant minds. They just couldn't see it coming, and so they did not really provide in the Constitution.
Well, it really boils down to two things here. It boils down to two things here, though. Is the secret government?
The way I kind of approach all this, Brooks, in order to play this chess game that we're talking about.
Is the secret government consorting with off-world sources of technology, or, as it were, social engineering, in order to make this profitable for them? Or are we just looking at the clear or the sovereign airspace of Earth, and more particularly the United States, and protecting that airspace from incursion by off-world craft, or even craft that have been here for a long time? We don't necessarily call them terrestrial craft, but they're certainly not from our neighborhood. So are we talking about just defense of our airspace, or are we actively trading technology with these groups?
We don't know. I mean, we simply don't know, and the government wants it that way. As the internet developed, as the research developed, as more people got involved, we got little pieces of the puzzle. Think of the whole reality of the human race and the Earth right now is a billion-piece puzzle, and that once put together gives us a stark and clear picture of everything. We have a tiny percentage of those pieces scattered around on a very large table, and we're stepping back from it, trying to figure out what the picture is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We do have the skills, and we do have the internet, and so you have an enormous effort to try to quote, fill in the missing pieces, and the internet has really made that possible. More importantly, the government is constantly, well, it less so now, but it was putting out all kinds of misinformation, in other words, throwing phony pieces onto the table to ensure that we could just never get a clear picture.
Well, so there were also those that were taking advantage of our great interest in this, and they were fabricating facts and fabricating their involvement with the facts for their own gain, which I'm sure was a great amusement for the government.
You had people putting out false information to sell books. You had people that were subcontractors of the government. You had direct. So in other words, if the truth is the first casualty of war, it's also the first casualty of secrecy. And so what has happened is the American people have been fed so much propaganda since 1947 that they have lost faith in government. And this accelerated during the Vietnam War, and from that point forward, particularly after the Nixon scandal, from that point forward, you had a country in which a very significant portion of the people in it had essentially put the social contract in a drawer and shut the drawer. And they didn't trust, they didn't believe, they were operating from a high degree of skepticism. And when that happens, the social structures start to break down. It's like a marriage. The husband and the wife will be able to run a pretty good family if they have fundamental trust in each other, they believe what each other is saying, and they can depend on each other. And if that trust breaks down to a point, the family completely comes apart. And that's what started happening in the U.S. And as the years went forward, the effect of that breakdown of the social contract was an ever-increasing inability of the U.S. to get anything done. Without the trust of the American people, without a certain fundamental agreement under that social contract, things weren't going to get done. In 1,000 different ways, you needed a bridge, you didn't get it. You needed a social program, it didn't happen. You need fiscal responsibility, didn't take place. You needed this, you needed that. You needed regulation of the banking industry, it wasn't going to happen. You didn't want to go into a war, you went anyway. And on and on and on. And slowly, the United States has been doing an excellent job of essentially undoing its relatively